Oh, hi, Jennifer. I couldn't see you for a moment.
No worries. I am going to try doing our class today with earplugs in. Can you hear me okay? Well, with ear microphones. No, what are these? Earbuds.
Earphones, that works.
I
Do you have any problem getting the invitation?
I did. I just got it, and so.
Okay, I'm trying to figure this out, so I was just curious.
I know. New for all of us, isn't it?
It's definitely interesting. You guys said it was really easy, and then when I clicked on it, it seemed to take me to a blank page. I'm like, what do I do with this?
Oh. Looks like Tyler found us. He's here too.
Yep.
Hi, Tyler.
Tyler.
Hello.
Okay, and so Kylie's not coming today, is that correct?
Yeah, she's in Paris. Yeah. Lucky.
I know. I'm not feeling sad for her. Still feeling sad for myself.
Yeah, seriously though.
I do have to tell you guys something really quick before we start. We have a home inspector coming at 9 o'clock today. So it's 9 o'clock my time. I'm not sure where you guys are. So if I leave, I'm letting him in. And,
okay.
And I don't know what he's gonna do. But anyway, it looks like he's pulling up right now. But anyway, if I get up and leave occasionally, it's because he needs me for something. And so I'm sorry.
You are just fine. You're fine.
And then I have to leave at 10. Sorry, because my advisor is calling me from BYU, Idaho at 10. So
awesome.
Difficult today.
That way we'll keep it short and sweet.
Yep.
So how do I record this? I'm not sure I'm familiar with. Is there a record button? It says live.
There should be one. It's usually in like the middle of the screen, I think. And
Yeah.
it says like start broadcast, I think is what it says.
Okay, then we're already doing it. Okay. Perfect. So Tyler, since she may have to leave, would you mind giving the opening prayer?
Yep, I can do that for sure.
Thank you.
Heavenly Father, grateful for this day and grateful that we're able to meet together this morning. Father, we pray that as we go over this week's material, that we'll be able to see how we can apply it in our own lives, that we'll be able to learn from it, and that we'll be able to use it to become more Christ-like. Father, we ask you to please have the Spirit be with us so that it guides us and leads us in the way that we need to go in this discussion. We say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So how did you guys like this case study?
It was pretty interesting. It was long. That was my first thought about all of it.
I was not geared for that long of a one either.
But. Oh, me either. But it was actually it was pretty interesting to learn about, I guess. Just seeing how different personalities and everything kind of go within a company, and how even though some of the most qualified people, it wouldn't really fit in too well. Depends
on what your objective is, huh?
Yeah.
All right, so I'm supposed to summarize the case. I don't know that I need to, because I like how it was done in story format. It was pretty easy to follow. Yeah. The parts that I struggled with was more of the facts and the criteria and all that. But you understand that Peter was gave his notice. Did he even give a notice, or he just left? It was kind of an overnight thing.
He just left, yeah.
Yeah. So, and then they had to hire a new replacement. We had to come up with those, out of those candidates, who would be the best choice. So let's start with pros and cons. Should we start with Rena? I think was the first option.
Yeah.
What were your thoughts there?
So on Rena, I thought that it's kind of cool they'd given her a chance to lead. Her con was she'd never really been in that position before. Never had really, I guess, didn't have the most knowledge about how things work. She had to keep going to people and asking them. But her pros were she'd been with the company already. She supported the company, and she fit in good with like personality wise. And she was like trying to learn. And you kept reading throughout the thing how she kept trying to like go to people and learn about it all. Let's see, what else about her? I can't really think of anything else too much.
Yeah, I agree. I really struggled with this case because I felt like they had a certain criteria that they wanted us to have be the way we judge.
Yeah.
And I don't operate under that criteria.
Yeah.
And so it was like, oh, I have to work with the facts, and I'm more interested in the personalities and, fighting for the underdog. And
I know, seriously.
so, how about you, Jennifer? Did you have any, we're talking about each candidate. What
Okay.
were your thoughts on Rena?
On Rena. So in my case analysis, I did not even consider her.
Oh, really?
Because it didn't say much about her because she was already working there and she was a junior analyst. Well, how do you say it?
Analyst?
Analyst. That's right. And so I didn't even consider her because it didn't sound like Stephen was even really considering her either. And so I focused more on the other candidates and did not even write about her. I didn't think that I don't know, because I didn't have enough information about her, I guess.
Right. And I think they did a good job of discrediting that possibility because there was so much emphasis on getting a star.
Right.
Important that was. So.
Right. Did you guys spend a lot of time on writing about her?
I did include her. I added that, she was managing, she was doing okay, and she familiar with the company, everything Tyler said. But it was obvious that was not sufficient, that they were, wanting to go outside of that and look.
Right. Right. Which made me think that she wasn't even a possibility. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of guided in that one, huh?
Yeah, and I totally fell for it.
Well, I think we were supposed to, but.
Oh, good.
Okay, so let's move on to Gerald Baum. Was he the next candidate that was up for consideration?
I believe so.
Yeah,
he was. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, are you talking about pros and cons for each one?
Yes. Yes, we're going through each candidate and talking about what you felt were the pros and cons of each one.
Okay.
I'll say straight up front, I was totally not impressed with Gerald Baum just by the fact that he was late for the appointment without an apology.
Yeah.
I'm like, ooh, red flag. And obviously that wasn't much of a concern for Stephen, enough to mention it, but he everything was geared toward their stardom, where they fit in that ranking on, is it II magazine?
Yeah.
And how they do on that. But his missing the soft skills of being able to work with people and interpersonal communications, it was just like, I'm not impressed. Next.
I felt the same way. And I didn't know if my personality and my biases took a lot of play into that. I don't think I was able to look at him very objectively because he rubbed me wrong. And but I didn't like his negative attitude. I noticed another thing was that he dropped significantly, it said in the ratings, after he joined Gotts and Loeb. I don't know how to say that company, but I don't know. He just kind of seems all about himself, and I don't know. He just doesn't work well with people. Kind of cocky is what I got.
Yeah. He's like pretty full of himself too. I was just like reading through it a little again, and he got mad because their copier wasn't working. Like that was one of the reasons he gave for wanting to leave. I'm like, I don't know. Still, that's kind of petty. So he's gonna bring that same mentality. Yeah, definitely gonna bring that same mentality. It's hard to change that.
Yeah.
So did you go ahead?
Go ahead. Well, I was just going to springboard off that and say, I just don't know why anybody would want to bring that personality type into their culture when they say they're like a family. What did they say? They're like a family type culture. And so, I don't know.
Yeah, I felt the whole time, and I really struggled with this one because I could not relate with what I felt they were wanting us to, like I said, use that criteria, and it just, I don't even care if they're a star. That means nothing to me. So
That's what I was like too. I didn't care for either one of the stars. So
yeah. Oh, you didn't care for David?
he was just too old for me.
Okay.
So
And I think that's what they were pointing as the drawback, because in all other accounts he was respectful, he was successful, he was
yeah, just a good guy, but just
just
they could tell he was getting worn out. I think was one of the things. They could just tell he was tired.
so that's obviously one of the criteria that's important for RSH. But I wasn't sure if I hadn't determined if that was enough of a demerit in my book, whether that would carry any weight in if I were the one doing the hiring. They would never want me to be in that position because I could never care about the way they do about the ranking and things.
I know. Well, if we're talking a little bit about David Hughes, I agree. I think that they were a little bit concerned that he is winding down in his career, and that he wasn't wanting to travel as much either. And it sounds like the job, one of the criteria is to be able to travel, and he just didn't seem like he was readily available to meet the high demands. I talked about how he was on vacation with his grandkids, and they kind of expect, it sounds like in this job, to be available 24/7. And because he put family first, it sounds like they didn't, I don't know, I think they saw that as a negative with this type of job.
And I saw that as a positive. I'm like, cool, he's got his priorities in life.
Like, life is not work.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, did you guys have anything else about David? I found it interesting that he was, let's see, he placed second right next to Peter. So he was even higher than Peter in the ranking. So it would be a step up if they're trying to replace Peter, but he was double the score than Peter. So there was that. Peter was like 4.3 and Hughes or David was 14. And I thought, well, how is this a bad thing? But obviously the age is, well, at least in my analysis, that was what they wanted us to think.
Yeah, that's what I pulled from it too. Was the age was the biggest issue for David, because he seemed very qualified and great interpersonal skills, but just seemed to be winding down.
Did either of you struggle with this the way I felt I was?
Not really. I liked picking out the pros and cons for each one. That helped me write the case study a little bit better to kind of see it more clearly, who would be the better candidate, in my opinion. And so I kind of liked it this way.
Yeah, that was kind of like me too. I don't know. I kind of just forgot about who was going to be the best qualified and just kind of focused on who was like the best candidate actually. And so that's how I did it. He gave me a good grade on it, so I think it worked.
Okay. I think I just felt a lot of pressure that they were wanting those criteria to be the determining factor, and I really struggled with having that be important for me. It's just, I just can't wrap my mind around this. So, okay, should we move on to Sonia?
Yeah.
Do it. The like only negative thing I had about Sonia was just, and it's not a negative thing, it's like the same thing, her family. Like she's got 2 young kids, a job that you're gonna have to travel a lot. And like she's made it work so far being able to stay home. But they told her like you're gonna have to come in actually. We have meetings like once a week and we meet with other people once a month. Like you have to make yourself available during those times. I don't know, I don't have kids yet, but I feel like that'd be pretty hard, especially with 2 young kids, to be gone all the time.
Yeah, I don't know. Personally, I think that would be a really hard career and be a mother at the same time and trying to meet both of those responsibilities, because it sounds like this type of career is really demanding of all your time. It's like your life. It sounds like it has to become your life.
It's like being a student.
Right. You are exactly right.
But not getting paid enough, I'll say that much.
And then also, I guess one of the other things about Sonia is that she really didn't have any experience working in a large firm. She was really successful and did really well where she was. But I think that might have been something that should be looked at, is that it was kind of risky.
Yeah.
So that was a negative in your mind?
Because I thought, well, if she was barely managing the demands of this smaller firm, then if she gets to a bigger firm like this one is, would she be able to do it with balancing motherhood and I don't know. I thought it was a little bit risky.
Yeah. And then like a red flag too that they brought up was she'd interviewed for like, I don't remember how many it was. She hadn't got a job yet in a big firm. I don't know. I kind of feel like they were guiding you, or just like just trying to make you not pick people by one statement at a time. Just like, oh, well, you better think about this too. So that person's out.
Well, I felt guided, but at the same time, it had enough of the pros and cons that I wasn't sure which one they wanted me to. I'm gonna have to turn that off. Sorry. Okay. So Sonia, I thought it was interesting because when I read it, it was the same thing. Oh, she's a go-getter. She's doing all these things. She's balancing family. So I admired that if she's going to be in a career, that family was important. And then as I pondered over it throughout the day and through the night and the next day, I was like, I have to make a decision. I have to write about this. And I kept leaning towards Sonia, but I wasn't sure why. It was just, but she should have her emphasis be on the family. Why am I leaning toward her as being the best candidate? And it wasn't until I actually went and prayed and said, help me decide this. I really am struggling trying to meet these objectives. And, then a different name popped in my head and I'm like, oh, okay. But I found it was interesting that I was really leaning toward her, and I'm not exactly sure why. I think I was just impressed with her. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just trying to do it all and succeeding at it.
Yeah, she was really successful, and I was impressed with her abilities that they talked about. She just seemed to just be very focused and driven and organized, and seemed like a great candidate.
Yeah.
Right, and she brought in an aspect of it that the others hadn't. What was it, the global market, or I'm not sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So, there was something she had a weak spot in, and so she found a way of creating a strength. And so I admire that. But that compromise, or not compromise, but accommodated, it was a win-win that accommodated her needs with family and not traveling, but still accomplished the needs of the firm. So.
No, that's a good way to look at it. I didn't even apply the win-win to Sonia, but I see it now that she compensated for where she wasn't able to give the company the time that maybe they needed with her in the office, but she was able to make up for that by bringing in the globalization part of it and really building that and strengthening that within the company.
Right.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay, so Seth Horkham.
This is who I chose.
This is who I chose too. I really liked him.
I did
That's
too.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we should have chosen Seth because we're unanimous. So what was your process in coming to that conclusion? Or what was it you liked about him?
I have to pull it up now. I don't even remember.
So
Did you pick Seth too?
I did.
Oh.
I did.
So is it okay, Tyler, if I say a few
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So some pros, these are just my bullet points that I wrote down. I liked that so this was a positive for the company that he was fully dedicated, but the fact that it cost him his family was not a positive. But I don't think in business they look at that too much. I don't know.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think he was fully dedicated. He was very thorough in his research. He's a team player. He was an up and comer. He was ranked in as a runner up, and he was very personable. I think people wanted to do business with him because they really liked him. He was just had a contagious enthusiasm about him.
Yeah. I think that's what, when he went in for his interview in the office too, people
Yeah.
were like, oh, I'm pumped. I'm stoked. Let's go do this stuff now. Like, we're ready to go.
Inspired to learn more.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I think that's kind of like the mentality that they were trying to like build there, was like, all right, we'll give you guys the tools. You learn for yourself and you do it for yourself. But like, I'll be there helping you and motivating you all along the way.
So what were your thoughts about him not being on the list of candidates from the headhunter? I mean, it was showed initiative and ambition on his part to seek that out.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, I understand that you're looking, but
Yeah. To be honest, I didn't really care he wasn't on the list. Like,
well, I
might-
know. I was just curious why that
Yeah.
was part of an element in the story.
I just, because for the one thing, like the repercussions from it or whatever that last section is you have to talk about in it, I just thought that it might offend a headhunter if you didn't choose one of his people. That was like one of the downsides I'd thought about for choosing Seth, was just like, well, you've worked with this guy before, he's given you good guys before, and now you're going to kind of go around him, it seems like, and hire this someone who wasn't on this list.
And I thought it was interesting he didn't research why he wasn't on the list.
Yeah.
I mean, because if he trusted his opinion so much, say, I've heard about this other guy, what do you think? You know, to find out what are the negatives that he might know that.
Yeah,
that
you're going to paint yourself in the best
headhunter
light. Yeah.
Say that again?
I said you're going to paint yourself in the best light until like you see it, and so maybe
Right.
the headhunter knows something about Seth that no one else does.
Right, but that's a good point, because I didn't even think about that they didn't even want to, well, Stephen didn't even ask about, or did he? Did he ask about Seth
he did.
later? I didn't
He
think,
was curious about it, but I
Yeah.
don't think he actually did the research like he did the other things.
because then he was willing to bring him in for the second round without that information.
Yeah.
I didn't even pull that out. I didn't even think of that. That's a good thought. So was
So
he
what
that impressive, do you think?
I'm sorry, say that again?
Do you think to Stephen, he must have been that impressive that he didn't think that he needed more information on him?
Or if he's like me, that was a passing thought and I meant to act on it, but I forgot.
Yeah, that would be like me too.
So did you have any other negatives for Seth?
I think one that I think that they mentioned that they were concerned about was his eagerness to please, and they thought that was a little disconcerting. And then maybe not being well known in the industry. Those were two that I came up with for cons, that he would have to just kind of start from zero, making a name for himself and gaining trust with clientele. But I think he could do it because of his personality. I think people would be drawn to him.
Yeah, I think his story during the interview as to why he was leaving the company after being there for 15 years kind of, you know, placated or smoothed over as to why he was not well known. I'm not sure if I'm explaining that very well, but
Yeah,
Yeah.
because they didn't let him shine over there.
right, they didn't support him the way that he felt that he was capable of
Yeah.
being a star.
And I like that he didn't like necessarily badmouth them either. He was just like, this is what it's like, because it'd be really easy to kind of talk bad on that company, especially if you feel like they're holding you back.
Right. Right. And instead he just kind of decided, well, I'm just going to be proactive about this and do something with it, and, you know, and not make it into a bigger issue than it needed to be, but just move on.
Yeah.
I really appreciated that he shared that he was struggling with the decision, that he didn't come by it lightly. You know, he's really weighed the pros and cons and felt that this was, you know, it's hard to not feel supported in your goals. And if that's, maybe he thought he could get that through RSH.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we've already mentioned who we would hire. Was it hard for you to come to that conclusion? Was it just after the first interview, like, oh, that's my money's on him?
That's how I was.
Yeah, I really liked Seth after reading all the other ones and then reading Seth. I just thought this is who they're looking for. Since it was already placed in my mind that we're looking for a rising star, I'm like, here's a rising star.
He's the one.
He's the one.
That's funny because I discredited Gerald Baum immediately. I'm like,
Yeah.
not impressed. And then when I got to David, it's like, oh, maybe, you know, I'm good with him if none of the other candidates are, you know. But and then Sonia, each one I was convinced that, oh, this is a possibility. And so it really was until the deciding moment that I'm like, who do I choose? So,
It was
all
fun.
right.
Though. It was fun doing the pros and cons on them each, and I don't know, making that decision made me feel like I had some power. Just kidding.
They can keep that power. I don't want
Yeah,
it.
exactly. That's why I don't work in that kind of industry or man.
Okay, so after we've discussed it, I'm supposed to share. Let me get the wording here. Information containing the salaries. I guess that's all we're going to say. So candidates, if they hired Rena full time, her current salary is 0.3 million, and her salary at RSH, including the raise, would remain at 0.3 million. Okay, and she's kind of the standard as to we could keep her at this status, or we could, you know, hire a star, and this is how it affects by that. So Sonia is currently making 0.4 million, and if she was hired at RSH, she would be making 0.7 million. And they consider that double the amount of Rena. Seth was currently making 0.7 million, and the salary at RSH would be 1 million. And that's 3 times Rena's salary. Gerald was 0.9 million, and salary at RSH was 1.2 million. And that's 4 times. And David was 1.3 million as his current. Oh, and his salary at RSH would be 1.5 million, and that would be 5 times the amount that Rena's.
Wow.
Does that give insight to your deciding factor? Because they didn't bring that up in the story, so we don't know if that was a determinant.
Yeah, I don't know. I kind of look at it like, I think that company has a lot of money, and they kind of make it seem
so that
like
doesn't carry. That's not a determining factor in their decision.
Maybe a little bit, but I don't know.
It didn't seem to be brought up though, which I'm kind of surprised they threw this question into our group discussion because I don't know, I didn't feel like it was
A concern.
Yeah.
The word I'm looking for. Yes.
Yeah, when they brought this up, when I read the information, I'm like, well, that makes me even dislike the star even more. I'm not sure what that was supposed to prove.
Right.
If we have to hire somebody who requires so much, then they're operating on greed. They're not operating on the purpose of the mission of the business, or, you know, their fundamental motive is greed. And yeah.
And maybe that's why his attitude is so bad. You know, he just knows he can get paid that much without having to really work for it or be kind about it. I don't know.
Who's they? Gerald?
Gerald and David. Well, no, David was really good. Gerald.
David was really good. And David was making more than Gerald.
That's right.
And he wasn't necessarily, oh, hi, Brother Lampert. I'm here.
Yeah, how you doing? I just coming in from a blizzard.
Oh.
Here.
Well, welcome to a conversation. So we have just discussed all of the candidates, and we reviewed the salaries, and we were just discussing what weight knowing that information carried.
Yeah.
So now they have some questions. Should Stephen give Rena the permanent position?
Are we supposed to take the salary into account now?
I think once that information is provided that we have to take that into account.
They're asking whether you would change your decision
Oh, okay.
based on the salary information.
I don't think I would. I think that Seth would be worth the money. He's experienced.
That's what I feel like too. And you could keep her on as like the junior still.
Mm-hmm.
And you could even give her a little pay raise if you needed, or keep her at the 0.3 million.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're still like paying the same as you'd be paying David if it was just him.
Right.
I think they did good. Well, if they chose what we all chose as getting a middle ground, they get the best one that's going to be a star. He's got the great potential. They're going to support him where he was being lacked in the other company. And so they're going to get that stardom, but they're not going to have that added expense that they would with David or Gerald. So, no, I don't think that would affect my decision.
Yeah, mine either.
So
The next
you,
question.
you
Go
all
ahead.
chose Seth. Is it?
We all chose Seth.
Yeah.
Who would you choose?
Well, I'll preface my remarks by saying I think, with the exception of Gerald, any one of those three would probably be okay.
Yeah.
I think, they all had different risks and all that sort of thing. But I would probably, and I have to say up front, this does not reflect any age bias on my part. I would probably have gone with David, and I would have offered him a 2-year contract with a stipulation that he mentor Rena and get her up to speed so she could take over the position. So
That's cool. That's a compromise or a win-win I hadn't considered.
the tricky part would be having David and Rena have some kind of interaction prior to finalizing the offer, so he felt like he had some involvement in the process. So it wasn't just foisted on him, that he felt it was a good deal. So, but I think it would help preserve the culture of the company of wanting to develop their own and give David a chance to really make a difference for a couple of years, and then he can ride off into the sunset.
So David was the highest paid one. He was 5 times the amount Rena.
Yeah.
Did the salary play into your decision at all?
No, we don't know this because they didn't tell us. But my guess would be that Peter was making a lot of money. He was one of the top analysts, and I'm guessing on that salary matrix, he would have been pretty close to the top. So I think, and it's conjecture, right? But
Right.
I'm thinking it would have been kind of a wash as far as salary goes between he and David. David maybe a little bit more.
That's
well, like
interesting.
I said, any one of those other two, Sonia or Seth, I think would have been fine.
So the next question says, and I find it interesting that they're bringing that in now, but should Stephen have let Peter go? I guess that's something we never considered before.
Well, I didn't know that they had a choice. I don't think that Stephen had a choice or a say in that. That's the impression I got.
I can't remember. Did they have the opportunity to raise his salary and to meet whatever Peter was seeking out there? Could they have counter offered? And
I don't know. That's a good
Did
question.
Peter
I
do
don't
that?
remember.
I thought it said that at the beginning of it, but I could have just been making things up.
Didn't Peter resign?
That's what I thought.
I think he basically took the step and
Right. And my first thought was, well, yeah, he made his decision. Of course you let him go. What do you, the trying to play games and manipulate, and how do you not let someone follow through with the decision they've made? So,
Yeah. I think
all right.
towards the end too. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying, like, towards the end of it, kind of seemed like he got a little too competitive. He was all driven by numbers and didn't care about anything else. Peter did. So, I don't know. I would have let him go. But I'm kind of just stubborn like that. If someone tries to leave, they're out of here.
That's cool. All right. So the next question, we kind of talked about it earlier, but it's, should Stephen have talked with the recruiter about Seth? I guess this is a moral question rather than a why didn't he? Should he have?
I think he should have, because he would have gotten more information about Seth. And then plus it wouldn't have been, I liked what Tyler said earlier about not going through the recruiter. That could have dampened that relationship there a bit by not getting his opinion on that.
Yeah, I would have gone through him too, or like asked him at least, just because I don't know. He put a lot of time into finding those 3 people already, and to kind of go around him, I feel like it's a little low, without at least asking his opinion as a person.
Right. Well, once finding Seth, maybe just asking the recruiter to find some information about him and get him involved in. I don't know. I think the more information you have, the better.
I just found it interesting, with as thorough as he was researching the other candidates, that he omitted that step. Maybe he had a limit as to how many times he could talk to the headhunter. I don't know. All right, should we move on? Does the performance at one firm guarantee high performance at another firm?
Does not. I feel the situation, the culture of a company has a big thing to do with it too. Kind of, the company is driven by all numbers rather than like supporting each other. There's going to be a difference on like the personality type, on how the personality reacts to that situation.
Yeah, and when I did my case study, when I was doing the pros and cons about Gerald, I found that he was rapidly, this is what I wrote down, that he rapidly was moving up in rankings to 11th out of 100 analysts. But then when he joined the Gotts and Loeb team, he dropped significantly in the ratings. And so I don't think it really said why he dropped, but that's not a guarantee that if they're ranked high, that they're going to always rank high, even in a new company.
I found it interesting with Gerald also. Sorry, Tyler, did you want to go?
Oh, go ahead. I can say that after. So,
If I can remember what I was saying. Nope. Tyler, you're on. Sorry.
You're fine. I was just looking at it like I'm a big sports fan. So you look at like you put a quarterback on a different team, he could throw for a record number of yards one year, and then the next year he's one of the worst quarterbacks in the league. The system around him has a big deal to do with kind of like how successful or unsuccessful someone is.
And I think that's why.
Go ahead.
I think that's why I struggled so much with the emphasis they put on the ranking, because that is an opinion on their success in that firm. And I don't know, it just was not a valuable criteria for me as to, because if you get a person of high caliber character, they're going to be successful wherever they are. But if you get somebody who's like Gerald, he can manipulate and work things so that he'll be successful, but that doesn't necessarily mean that he'll be successful with RSH. And so I really struggled with the importance that was placed on that. Yeah, being
No,
the
I
criteria.
Mhm.
Okay, Brother Lamphere, I apologize. You're on.
Oh, no, that's fine. I was just going to say, it can go both ways. Tom Brady, who's the quarterback for the Patriots, I think he was drafted like way down in the draft. And he's without doubt one of the best quarterbacks that plays in the NFL. So there's a case of somebody's talent that wasn't recognized or valued in the beginning, but turns out to be a superstar. So I actually have a little war story about that. I think it was the Houston airport. I was in the Houston airport waiting for a flight, and I ran into a guy and his wife that used to work with me at a company, and he had been laid off with this company that we had worked with, and I said, "Well, what are you doing here at the airport?" And he says, "I'm going to Boston." And I said, "Well, what's going on there?" He said, "I was named Employee of the Year for the company I'm working with." And so here's a guy that was laid off because they didn't feel like he fit what was going on. And here it's 2 years later, and he's getting an award for Employee of the Year in this new place that he landed. So you never know.
I think the criteria or what's important to one company really determines whether somebody will be successful in that. Because maybe Gerald's cutthroat, I don't care, I can walk on and maneuver, manipulate people the way I want, but I'll be successful, is really important to some businesses. I mean, maybe that speaks their language. To me, it's repulsive. And I think, Stephen, where they put proper emphasis on the team and the effort, that would be a really bad choice in accomplishing that. So. Okay, moving on.
You say things so well. Thank you.
So the last question is, discuss the types of human capital. And I have to admit, I read through this, but I'm not sure that I grasped the point of what it was supposed to make. You guys remember that arrow that talked about, let me pull it up really fast.
Yeah, I pulled mine up to look at it too.
So the general human capital, which is more portable, versus the company-specific human capital, which is rarely portable. So.
Right.
So let me look at the question
So
again.
go ahead and discuss that.
I'll let you guys start it. I'll jump in after.
Well, I'm glad I wasn't alone going.
This was actually really new for me to learn this. I hadn't heard these terms before. And so I don't know if I understand things well enough, but let me give it a try. With the question they're asking, they want us to just talk about what they are, the different types. Okay.
Just so we can have an understanding of it, because obviously it escaped me.
Yeah, so strategic human capital. So this is, I'm assuming that this are skills that people have that you want as part of your team. And so people that have employees that are more strategic in, let's see, the way that they're talented in cutting costs. I'm just kind of reading through this. Maybe they have a way with numbers is what I'm pulling from this. I don't know. I don't know on target or not. This is a tough one for me.
Okay, Tyler, jump in.
All right. I kind of look at it like, I don't know, I could be completely wrong, but I look at it like people's personality skills or like the talents they have. Some people are going to be better at like cutting those costs, or some people are going to be, I was just looking at it, some people are going to be better at like knowing the knowledge about routines and procedures or corporate structures. I think like the way to be the most successful is to kind of have someone who's, I don't know if like a master, a one traded would be better, or kind of a jack of all trades would be better in that one.
So
What
I'm
is it?
assuming. I'm
Sorry.
good at that. Sorry. I'm assuming that each of these candidates would fall in one of these, and Rena would probably be the company specific. She's the one that's familiar with how the company works and all that. So that would be a plus for her.
Yeah.
I'm not sure where the others would fall in that.
Well, I would probably put Seth with the the relationship one. He just seemed to be very good at that. But so did David, if I'm remembering his name right,
Right.
the older gentleman. Both of them, it seemed like that was kind of their spotlight, was the way that they had interacted with people. And
Yeah. And I think
maybe
you could put, oh, sorry, go ahead.
it's your turn. I talked already.
Oh, I was just thinking you could put some of them in more than one too. Like,
Mhm.
what was her name? Sonia. Like, she was really personable, and she was like really smart, like with certain strategies that she was trying to implement. She knew like how to
Right.
make up for her weaknesses.
Mhm.
So I don't know if these are kind of like, I don't know, I'll get a little churchy, like Christ-like attributes. You try to develop these as you go throughout it, and like the better you are at doing each one of these capitals, or I think that's what I call it, human capitals, the better like, or the more effective the leader would be.
That's a good example of that. And so is it important to have a little bit of each? Then probably so.
So is this like I'm not sure I'm going to be able to create an analogy, but is it like levels where you rise up and you attain certain levels and skills and valuableness for the company, or is it more of a niche where you fit in?
Great question.
Well, what do you think?
I think that, so your question is it something that you develop, or is it something that you have a niche for? Is that your question?
Well, ask it this way. If you are using this matrix or this list as part of your criteria for hiring somebody, would you want to have them have more or less of the things on this list?
I want
Okay.
them to have more.
So it's more of a level.
Yeah, you would want them to bring as much of these different things to the table as possible.
Okay, I can see that.
Yes, I think so. Because you wouldn't want to be too heavy in one of these and then very light in the other. I think the more balanced you are in these, then the better employee.
Well, and it's like management, where the low man on the totem pole, the one who does the grunt work would be general human capital. They'd be dispensable. But
Mhm.
the one who has the strategy and these are weird to think of it in human capital. The industry who knows the ins and outs of the business and then has relationships with clients. Okay, so I can see this, how the more specific you are, the more skills you have, the more valuable you are.
Yes, I understand how to read this now. When we first started this part of the discussion, I wasn't sure how to understand those arrows, along with the different types of capital, human capital. But now I understand that the company-specific human capital is the most valuable to a company because they understand the culture. They're already familiar with the system processes, and And that's hard to replace. And so, sorry, I am a slow learner.
No,
I'm starting to get it.
So it's like job security, where they
Right.
value themselves on a low turnover, then
Mhm.
more that they have of those attributes and talents, skills that the
And
more
that
qualified they are.
and that relationship is just right there next to the company capital, company specific human capital. How important it is to be able to interact well with your coworkers and have positive, good relationships there.
So good luck, Gerald.
Exactly what I was thinking.
Well, you know, that applies to any organization that's thinking of filling a spot, because they need to ask those questions. Is there somebody inside that we can bring into this position or grow into this position versus bringing in an outsider who may or may not connect to what you want? So,
Yeah.
My husband works for a company. He's actually the manager there, and he does all the hiring. And he often talks about what he looks for when he does a hire, and it's always usually character. And he says we can teach skill, but we can't really teach character. And so I look for someone with high character, and then we are able to teach them the skills for the job. And
yeah.
it feels like they have really good people that work for the company because of that hiring priority of putting character above skill. You know, they need to have skills, but the most important thing is character.
I so agree with that. I was really struggling. I'm like, I don't care if they rank high on this chart, because what kind of person are they?
Mm-hmm.
What's their strength of character
Mm-hmm.
that's going to translate into supporting our firm?
Right, right. And bringing and adding to the culture that exists there already.
Right.
I think
Well,
especially with this company. Yeah.
if you go in back to your 7 Habits reading, what does Covey say about this? You know, there's 2 C's. One of them's character, and the other is what? It has to do with skills and abilities and stuff. It's competency. You want somebody with both, right?
Right.
Because you can have character till the horses come in from the pasture, but if you can't do anything, you know, that's an issue too, right?
Right.
What's that?
Well, it doesn't do the company any good if you can't do anything.
Right. So you need to bring both to the table. So,
Exactly. Exactly.
Well,
and I'm not in any way diminishing the importance of character. I'm just saying that there needs to be some competency associated with it. Now, you might see some diamond in the rough and say, okay, this person can't do anything, but I could see where they could. You might want to invest the time and energy into developing them. So that's an interesting thing as well. So
I have a hard time seeing somebody with character who wouldn't have competency with it. I mean, that's part of character, is having a good work ethic and doing those hard things that, you know, I think that it's just, they're compatible. You can't have one without the other. I mean, you can have competency without character, but I don't think you can have character without some type of competency.
if you think of it in the skill specific arena, you could. I mean, you could be super, have a lot of character and be very good at some particular thing. But if you went into a different arena, you'd still have character, but you would flounder because you just aren't good at that. You just don't have the skill set to succeed there. And you know, you can have a strong work ethic and you can be honest and all that stuff, but your your fine motor skills just aren't there for you to be a brain surgeon. You know, I mean, so
Right. So I guess it depends on if potential is something you're willing to work with, like you said.
well, we all have different gifts and talents and abilities, so
Right.
you have to recognize that as well.
Very cool.
That's true.
I have to go back to my blizzard.
Oh, that's okay. We are done and we're out of time.
I
So
appreciate being with you for a few minutes this morning. You have any
Yeah.
questions or comments for me? I heard from the grapevine, I haven't substantiated this, but I heard that Google Hangouts is going away.
Okay.
I think I heard like April 1st or something.
Oh dear.
So if that's true, then use Zoom.
Okay.
All right.
I know how to use that one.
I don't. I'm still trying to figure it out. I'm missing competency there.
But you've got a lot of character.
Yeah.
Makes up for it.
And we can teach you Zoom. So there
I'm
you go.
willing to learn.
We see the diamond in the rough.
Yes.
There
So
you
we're
go.
good.
That's
I'll
awesome.
see you guys. Bye.
All right.
We'll
Thank
see ya.
you. Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Okay. See you guys.